Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping to, again, a new brewer to me. Never had any of their beers prior. And this brewer is based in San Marcos, California. They are called the Lost Abbey. This beer is Red Poppy Ale. It is an oak-aged Flanders or Flemish red style beer. 6.5% ABV on this one. And it was brewed with cherries and poppy seeds. So, label art on here, nice dark tall can, one of the skinny ones, kind of like a Red Bull can type shape. It says the Lost Abbey with a cross on the top and then of course the red poppy. So a nice clean design, really gives you a good sense of what to expect when you get in here. So California based, doing a classic Belgian style. Of course they, if you looked it up say on Untapped, it would say a Flanders red, a Flemish red. It isn't, because obviously it's not brewed in Belgium, in Flanders, the region. Flemish is of the region of Flanders in Belgium. So this ought to be really nice. I got a nice glass here that should work well for this. I love a good classic Belgian Flemish red, and of course any Flemish red style beer. And it's always fun and exciting to jump into a new brewer. So let's get this one poured right in the glass. Gonna go up, yep, there we go. And this is looking that very much classic color. It is typically kind of a browner ale base, but it does take on that red hue. So let's see. Yeah, visually, yeah. It's probably impossible to see on the camera, but I can tell you that this absolutely looks very much like any Belgian Flemish red that I've ever had or seen. Sure, it's a brown ale base, but it has a very distinct red hue. This one, I gotta say, impressively so. It's quite red, quite deep red. It looks fantastic. Very active in terms of carbonation, as with most sour beer styles. This is no exception here. So it looks lovely in the glass, very active, mix of smaller and kind of medium, but very, very fast-acting carbonation. So we're gonna get right up over this for a sniff. Yeah, I mean, this smells fantastic. You can really smell a nice combination of cherry and the sour and the tart on the nose. I mean, that's the entire aroma profile right there. That's what you need to know. There's no undercurrents of the malt. You're not going to pick up the poppy in the aroma anyway, but it smells absolutely fantastic. What a beautiful balance of aromas as well. There is a little bit of that subtle tutti frutti kind of aroma coming off of this. So I'm expecting a nice bit of possibly funk punch coming out of the Brett. But let's just jump right in, see what this one's about. Oh, that's a very nice beer. That's very well balanced. Not just that aroma, but also this flavor profile. This is very good. This is a really true to inspiration Flemish inspired Flemish red style beer. And I gotta say, I'm pleasantly surprised. You don't always get this, but we talked about this relatively recently on another oak-aged beer. I think it might have been an Anchorage brew, or maybe another one before that. But this is oak-aged for 12 months on something a little lighter, a little more delicate. That's where these kind of just wood, not like whiskey, obviously, bourbon, those are barrels, but just wood, a non-spirit barrel, that's where it really comes in and plays to its own. And you can pick up the subtlety. So there is a little bit of an earthy, woody back to this, which pairs with the underlying. It does indeed taste like Brettanomyces as one of the main souring agents in here. There's a little bit of funk. It's very mild on the funk side, but got a nice kick of sour, nice kick of tart. The cherry tastes very bright. And mixed with that sour and the tartness, it does put you in mind of nice tart cherries. It's absolutely fantastic. Beautifully, beautifully balanced beer. It's delicate. It's packed full of flavor. This is not a heavy beer style. 6.5% ABV, maybe getting on the higher end for what you would typically see from a Belgian Flemish red, but very, very well done. This is an excellent, excellent interpretation of a classic Belgian beer style. I really, really enjoy this. So let's pop back in for a second sip. I'm gonna pick apart the body and mouthfeel, let everything re-intensify, make sure I didn't miss anything, then we'll talk about the finish. But on first sip, I'm impressed. That's very, very good beer. body is kind of sitting in an average medium, which maybe is a bit more robust than your average sour, but 6.5% ABV on this beer style is a little higher than you would typically see. It feels exactly right. Mouthfeel, very much the same story here. It's got a bit more resistance than your average Flemish red would have, but it feels appropriate to the ABV range. The body and the mouthfeel work very well in concert here. And yes, this is a sour beer style, and yes, there is a noticeable drying effect. This one is not particularly pungent. It comes on relatively soon. I would say you notice it roughly 5 to 10 seconds after you swallow each sip. That's when the palate does start to dry out a little bit, but it's not a brute style drying. Just a little bit. It makes the beer feel a bit more crisp on the back end, which does, of course, lead us into the finish. That's also really critical here. This is not a beer style that's known for a particularly long finish, and this is just a standard non-spirit-based barrel aging. But the finish on this does actually pop out a fair bit longer than your average Flemish red would do. And on this one, really, it's a combination of the intensity of the cherries that they added that are very distinct and clear, and also the overall relative intensity of the sour and tart. It can kind of be all over the board on these beers, but this is definitely a little more forward on the sour and tart notes than a typical Flemish red would be, like a Belgian import Flanders red. Just a bit more forward, and I like it. So this is very much inspired by the classic style, but brewed in California. It's their take, slight deviation with the addition of the poppy. You know, it's not a flavor I'm picking out. It's not aroma I'm picking out. I'm sure it's adding and bringing something to the table. If nothing else, it makes for a little bit more interesting beer. But this is very, very well put together. Very delicate, very nice, wonderful balance of ingredients here. And the finish, yeah, impressively long for this beer style. So you do get a little bit of that punch and also a little bit of that underlying wood barrel. Now we're not talking, you know, I use this as a yardstick for length. We're not talking a West Coast IPA style length here. This is not an overtly bitter beer by any stretch. But, you know, it's the intensity of the sour and the cherries in particular that punch it out a little longer than average. Not crazy long, but definitely longer than average for the style. I gotta say, really nice first beer to jump into from a brewer I've never tried. This is a fantastic beer. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, go up my scores. When we come back, we'll get this one ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was the Lost Abbey's Red Poppy Ale. This was a Flanders red style beer. It was oak aged, brewed with cherries and poppy seeds. This one clocked in at 6.5% ABV, and the Lost Abbey is based in San Marcos, California. So a really, really well put together beer here. This was, I mean, just as good as any actual Belgian Flemish red that I've ever had. Really, really great beer. And indeed, this almost knocked it out of the park. One category it did not get the illustrious perfect 10 out of 10, and we will jump to that one. That would be the finish. So this is not a beer style that's known for a particularly long finish. This one was actually a bit more forward in terms of flavor dominance. Certainly the cherry and the souring, but it still being above average wasn't quite as long as I expected for the style, given the little higher than average ABV range and the overall intensity of the flavor. So compared to a normal Flemish red, yes, this was indeed above average. I just expected just a little bit more. I think if this were barrel aged with like a spirit-based barrel, it easily could have eclipsed it. But as it were, it still was above average. The finish gets a 7 out of 10, which does leave a perfect 10 out of 10 in the remaining 9 categories. That's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, head and retention, appearance, balance, feeling, and intangible. That's my subjective thoughts category, and example of style. So that brings the total score on the Lost Abbey's Red Poppy Ale to a 97 out of 100. This was an awesome beer, guys. Very cool beer to jump in as a first from any new to me brewer. I really, really like what they did with this. This was really excellent, inspired by the classic Belgian beer style, and pulled off very, very well. Indeed, I would say In a lot of respects, I preferred it. It was a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder. I really, really liked it, but it was true to the style, and they executed it marvelously. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.